Hello and welcome back. I'm Dr. Mark D. Baldwin, and today's lecture is on naturalism and Stephen Crane. Charles Child Walcott posited a theory of the divided stream, that the American literary temperament is half sappy romantic dreamer and half Faustian aggressive materialist. Naturalism is an offshoot of this divided stream. It's half X-rated graphic realism about war, hookers, bums, and bad guys, and half romantic fantasy. The naturalist took to be supremely real all that is sordid, squalid, dirty, slimy, repulsive, brutal, and pathetic in man and nature. Against this reality, it poised everything ideal, generous, value-laden, clean, respectable, or gentle, as sorry appearances, lying illusions, the genteel tradition making the past seem contemptible, a bucket of ashes, the residue of old dreams, old lies, old losses. Prior to naturalism, most writers were genteel, middle-class, and polite. Naturalists were literary bohemians, living anti-intellectual, low-brow lifestyles. Emile Zola's experimental novel is the seminal naturalist manifesto, in which people are beasts, driven down by social forces over which they have little or no control. The universe is materialistic and deterministic, not spiritual. We are invariably shaped by our heredity, natural science, and environment, social science. Naturalism propounds atavism, that the reverse of evolution is taking place in society. The human species is devolving back into a primal savage state. As science began focusing on man as an animal, for example, Darwin's Origin of the Species, writers followed suit, emulating scientists by observing and recording man's basic drives for food, shelter, sex, and violence. The brute within became the subject of many novels, for example, Dracula and Tarzan. Reveling in the extraordinary, the excessive, and the grotesque in order to reveal the immutable bestiality of man and nature, naturalism dramatizes the loss of individuality at a psychological level by making a Calvinism without God its determining order and violent death its utopia. The ease with which naturalism verges upon parody, especially in Crane and Norris, thus results in part from its Gothic intensification of detail. The characters inhabit alien landscapes filled with inflated symbols, and they die not in bed at home of old age and natural causes, but in open boats, in Death Valley, in the electric chair, in silos of wheat, in the nowhere of the Yukon. Crane exploded the myth of the great American Garden of Eden. Perfect innocence does not exist, nor do progress or the idea of the perfectibility of man. In fact, life has no meaning. Yet Crane doesn't give up. He fights the impersonal forces of nature and shows compassion and love toward his fellow man. People must face the indifferent universe stoically. Dignity and integrity become the reasons for living. The world at large is a senselessly violent cosmic process, unrelated to the longings, ideas, and beliefs of the human beings who, only in their own eyes, are its favorite victims. Life is simply a state of war, and Crane intends to gash our consciousness to work on our conventional feelings. His sensibility is aggressive, stoic, and humorous, asking the question, how much can human beings take? Crane adheres to the complex vision that human free will and determinism are not irreconcilable opposites. Most of the work by other naturalist writers suffered because of a failure to reconcile a belief in progress through human initiative with a philosophy of determinism. If Crane uses the form of the Hobbesian Paradox, that man is free but his acts of will are caused, to create a perfect tension between freedom and determinism, other naturalistic writers, such as Theodore Dreiser, introduce the polar opposites of this vision with varying degrees of resolution of its oppositions. Crane, Norris, and Dreiser share the view that man and nature are one, not two, but their visions emphasize how a view of nature is animated by destructive impulses. Complementing his naturalism is an impressionistic style that sees reality as fragmentary and life as episodic. Disorderly and complex, the world can only be apprehended indistinctly, in a blur of confused sensory impressions. Reality is radically subjective, at the mercy of the imagination, emotion, and memory, evanescent and relentlessly shifting, changing, morphing into something else. In Crane's greatest work, The Red Badge of Courage, Henry Fleming, the main character, is split between a romantic desire for action and the passivity of his Christian upbringing. Infused with an ironic sensibility, wherein little that happens conforms to expectations, The Red Badge of Courage teems with demonic imagery of serpents, dragons, and monsters. Henry's mind transforms men into monsters and bullets into demons. Crane schizophrenically shifts, think of analogies with Walcott's divided stream here, between an objective realism and Henry's distorted naturalistic and impressionistic renderings of the events swirling around him. Intensely modern in his sensibilities, Crane embraces the existential problem of characters forced to create meaning and define reality out of a meaningless, indefinable existence. For Crane, as for Hemingway after him, war became the ultimate image of society's inevitable and doomed struggle for existence, financial gain, and power. Ultimately, Crane was a social Darwinist. Man's is a violent struggle to live, and only the strong survive. In The Blue Hotel, the Swede obsesses with taking action. He's a self-alienated man whose delusions of persecution become a self-fulfilling prophecy. There's a saying that applies to the Swede: whom the gods destroy, they first make mad. The references I've used in this lecture are the following, in case you'd like to read up and pursue a knowledge of naturalism and Crane a little further. There they are. I've deliberately refrained from saying too much about The Blue Hotel, your reading selection, because I want you to research it and come to your own observations. Please listen to the next lecture on 20th century literature as soon as you can, because I'd like you to look for modern and existential elements in The Blue Hotel and throughout the rest of the readings in this class. Next time, I'll discuss the influences and aspects of 20th century literature, including the political and social scene, modernism, and existentialism. Thanks for your attention, and I'll see you next time.